So, good morning everyone. So today we are going to see the clinical enzymes. So in previous session you had completed the basics about the enzymes. So today we are going to see the clinical enzymes. So enzymes, enzymes are nothing but biocatalysts. They catalyze the reaction between a substrate and the enzyme, and finally we'll get the product. Okay. So enzyme substrate complex is formed, and finally we'll get the product. It's a biocatalyst which help in catalyzing the reactions inside the human body. So we know enzymes, it will be having a catalytic site which is made up of different amino acids, and enzyme is an apoenzyme, and with the cofactor it is known as whole enzyme. So all this you had seen. And coming to mechanism of action enzyme, you had seen different mechanisms. The lock and key model, it is a previous model in which the substrate and enzyme both are rigid. And next is the advanced model, is the induced fit theory, in which there will be change in the conformation of the enzyme. And the recent one is the substrate strain theory, in which there will be change in the shape of the substrate for attaching to the enzyme. So the recently accepted concept is a combination of the induced fit and substrate strain theory. So that's all you had seen. And what is catalysis? So catalysis is nothing but reaction between the substrate and the enzyme. So mechanism of action means the attachment of the substrate to the enzyme is mechanism of action, and the reaction between the substrate and enzyme is the catalysis. So catalysis, different types of catalysis are there: acid-base catalysis, covalent catalysis, and metal ion catalysis. And coming to acid-base catalysis, due to transfer, due to acceptance and donation of the protons between the enzyme and the substrate, the acid-base catalysis takes place. The reaction between the enzyme and the substrate is by donation and acceptance of the proton, by which the substrate is converted to the product. And the other one is covalent catalysis, in which an intermediate covalent is formed, a covalent intermediate is formed during the transformation of substrate to the product. And metal ion catalysis, in which the metal ions participate in the conversion of substrate to the product. So this is catalysis. So mechanism of action means how the enzyme is getting attached to the substrate, and catalysis means how the reaction between the enzyme and substrate taking place after the attachment. And in the enzymes, you had seen the various factors affecting the enzyme activity, and you had seen the graph, everything you had seen in the previous sessions. And coming to enzyme regulation, this enzyme regulation is very important because each and every metabolism will be having a rate limiting enzyme or key enzyme. That key enzyme will regulate the complete metabolism. Even though many enzymes participate in the set of reactions in a metabolism, but there will be some key enzymes, one or two key enzymes will be there, and these enzymes will regulate the complete metabolism. So that's why enzyme regulation is very important in different metabolisms of the body, in regulating the different metabolisms of the body. So there are different ways of enzyme regulation. You had seen all these anyway: allosteric regulation, covalent modification, proteolytic cleavage, feedback regulation, and regulation by isoenzymes, and regulation by compartmentation. So what is allosteric regulation? There will be allosteric site on the enzyme, where allosteric inhibitor or allosteric activator combines at this site, then the enzymes become inhibited or activated. This is allosteric regulation. Then proteolytic cleavage. So proteolytic cleavage is a mechanism in which there will be a part of the polypeptide chain will be cleaved. Okay, part will come out so that the enzymes will become active enzymes. The pro-enzymes will become active enzymes. This is known as proteolytic cleavage. That is a part of the polypeptide chain is removed, is cleaved so that the enzyme becomes active. This is a way of regulation of the enzyme. So when the enzyme is regulated, then only it can regulate the metabolism and different steps in the metabolisms. And the next one is feedback regulation. So here you can see the series of reaction in which the enzyme combines with the substrate, combines with the enzyme to form different intermediates, and finally the product is formed. And this product will inhibit the first enzyme so that there will be control to the continuation of the metabolism. Okay, when the product is more formed, when more product is formed, it will regulate the, it will attach and control the first enzyme so that the metabolism can't take place and the product is, formation of product itself is also controlled. This is known as feedback regulation. And coming to the covalent modification, this mainly depends on the phosphorylation and dephosphorylation. Some enzymes are inactive in dephosphorylated stage, and when phosphate is added, it becomes active. And similarly, some enzymes are active without phosphate, and they become inactive when it is phosphorylated. And this removal and addition of the phosphate is catalyzed by the kinase and phosphatase enzymes. This is also an enzyme, and addition of phosphate to this enzyme is catalyzed by the kinase, and the removal of phosphate from this enzyme is catalyzed by the enzyme phosphatase. And some enzymes are active without phosphate, that is dephosphorylated state. So for this, when the enzyme has to be inactivated, then the phosphate is added. Okay, to get inactivated, phosphate is added. So this is phosphorylation, dephosphorylation for enzymes and also hormones. And next is the isoenzymes. Presence of different types of isoenzymes also control the reactions. And regulation by the compartmentation. So compartmentation means nothing but the presence of enzymes in different compartments or different organelles within the cell. Some enzymes are present in the cytosol, some enzymes are present in the mitochondria, some in the nucleus, and some in the peroxisomes. So this itself is a control or control for different steps in the metabolism. Hence, these regulate the metabolisms. Okay, compartmentation, regulation by the compartmentation of the enzymes, that is presence of enzymes in different compartments within the cell. So these are the regulation mechanism of regulation. And coming to enzyme inhibition, you know, inhibition of the enzyme, it is competitive and non-competitive, and this can be clinically applicable. So you had studied the activators and inhibitors for the electron transport chain. So if inhibitors are added, it inhibits the enzymes and affects the electron transport chain. Similarly, neuromuscular junction also, if inhibitors are added, if some poison substances which are inhibitors are taken, then it will block the neuromuscular junction by inhibiting the enzyme. And disulfiram, for in alcoholics, for avoiding the alcohol, disulfiram is given, which enzyme inhibits. This inhibits the action of acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, then acetaldehyde accumulates in the alcoholics, which leads to different ill effects. So this is the application of enzyme inhibition. So enzymes measured in plasma can be divided into two groups. So now we are going to see the clinical importance, the diagnostic importance of the enzymes. So enzymes measured in plasma can be divided into two groups: plasma specific enzymes and plasma non-specific enzymes. So these plasma specific enzymes are also known as functional enzymes. These are important enzymes because these are more useful for the diagnosis of different diseases. These are functional enzymes. They exhibit different functions in the body. So that's why these are functional enzymes. These are more present in the plasma, and these are very useful in diagnosis because we can assess the enzymes levels present in the plasma very easily. So that's why these are useful for diagnosis. And coming to plasma non-specific enzymes, these won't perform much of the functions, and these are mostly present inside the cell, and they are released in the normal turnover of the cell, or they are released when there is any death or necrosis to the cell. Okay, death of the cell or necrosis of the cell, then these enzymes are released from the cell. And these enzymes are also released in the minimum quantity in the cell turnover. Okay, but mainly the plasma or functional enzymes are useful in the diagnosis of the diseases. And this is the difference between the plasma enzymes and non-functional or cellular enzymes. Okay, this you can go through. What is the difference in the function, difference in the site, and difference in the effect of diseases. And you can see the examples also. And coming to the diagnostic important enzymes. So mostly we know that the plasma specific or functional enzymes are useful in the diagnosis of the diseases. Okay, and even these non-specific enzymes are also due to cell death or cell necrosis are released into the plasma only. So that's why the plasma level of enzymes will be increased in any diseased condition. Okay. So mostly in many diseases there will be injury or damage to the cells. So all the enzymes which are present inside the cells are released into the plasma. And when we assess the plasma levels of the enzymes, they will be increased. The results will be increased. Okay, that is the main principle for assessing the enzymes in different diseases, for diagnosing different diseases by using enzymes. So diagnostic significance of enzymes. So enzymes can act as diagnostic markers of the underlying diseases. So in some cases, directly the enzymes act as diagnostic markers. And in some cases, the enzymes help in assessing the other biochemical parameters which are helpful in the diagnosis. So in both cases, enzymes are helpful in the diagnosis. They are directly useful as the diagnostic markers, and they are helpful in assessing the other biochemical substances which are markers of diagnostic, markers of the diagnosis of some other diseases. So enzymes are directly and indirectly useful in diagnosing the diseases. And apart from diagnosis of diseases, enzymes are also useful in prognosis of diseases and response of drug in a diseases. They are useful in assessing the response of a drug in the disease also. So this is the application of the enzymes in clinical practice. And coming to isoenzymes are part of enzymes, and these are important because they are helpful in the diagnosis of the diseases. So isoenzymes are nothing but they are multiple forms of the same enzyme that catalyze same biochemical reaction. The main difference in the isoenzymes is their site of production is different. They are produced from different origin. That is the main difference. Otherwise, they are having mostly same properties, and also they are same enzymes. And they differ in the electrophoretic mobility, kinetic properties, and amino acid sequence to some extent. So this is about isoenzymes, which you had already seen in the previous sessions. And coming to the important isoenzymes which are useful in the diagnosis are creatine kinase CK, which is also known as creatine phosphokinase CPK. Anything is same. Lactate dehydrogenase or LDH, and alkaline phosphatase or ALP. So these are the commonly used diagnostic enzymes which are having isoenzymes. And coming to creatine kinase, creatine phosphokinase, this is a dimer which is made up of 2 polypeptide chains. Okay, that's why it is having 3 different types of isoenzymes. Okay, so CK1, CK2, and CK3. So CK1 is made up of same type of monomers, and CK3 also same type, and CK2 it is made up of, it is a dimer which consists of 2 different type of the monomers. So CK1 is present in brain, which is increased in CNS diseases and brain tumors. And CK2 is present in the heart, which is increased in the acute myocardial infarction. So we had seen in the markers of the MI, we had seen CPK, okay, and CK3 or CPK3 is present in skeletal muscle, which is increased in skeletal muscle disorders. Okay, this is about the diagnostic importance, the clinical importance of creatine phosphokinase or creatine kinase. And in electrophoretic pattern, we can see the thick band of the CKMB. So this is electrophoretic pattern. We will see if suppose CK is increased in the body, we have to know which type of CK is increased, whether it is related to brain or heart or muscle. So in that case, to see which type of CK is increased, we'll send the sample for electrophoresis. So in electrophoresis, we'll get different bands for CKMB and CKBB and CKMM. That means CK1, 2, 3. Which band is increased, that type of CK is increased in a particular patient. So here you can see the CKMM is more increased in the electrophoretic band. That means we can assess, we can expect that there is some skeletal muscle disorder. If suppose CK is increased in the body, we can't tell whether he is suffering from a brain disorder or a heart disease or a muscle disease. But if we send a sample for the electrophoresis, we can know which type of creatine kinase is increased, so that we can approach to the diagnosis whether he is suffering from which disease. So in this case, CKMM is more increased. So in the graph also you can see. So this patient is suffering from a skeletal muscle disorder. So that's why his CK levels are increased. So coming to the other enzyme, LDH, lactate dehydrogenase. This is having 5 isoenzymes because it is made up of 4 polypeptide chains. It is a tetramer. We had seen in the structure of proteins, what is a dimer, what is a monomer, and what is a tetramer. So LDH is a tetramer which consists of 4 polypeptide chains. That's why it is having 5 isoenzymes. LDH 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So LDH 1 and 2 are generally increased in myocardial infarction, and LDH 3 is increased in leukemia, and LDH 4, 5 are generally increased in the liver diseases. And LDH 5 is also increased in the skeletal muscle disease. Here also same thing. If LDH is increased in the blood, then we will send the sample to the electrophoresis. Then only we can tell which type of isoenzyme is increased. Then only we can approach to the diagnosis. So these are the different isoenzymes of the LDH. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in electrophoretic pattern, we can see which band is thick. Then that isoenzyme is increased, and that isoenzyme, that disease related to that isoenzyme is it will be our diagnosis. And coming to isoenzymes of ALP, ALP is also having different isoenzymes. It is alpha 1, alpha 2, heat labile and heat stable, and pre-beta, gamma, and leukocyte alkaline phosphatase. So different types of isoenzymes are present for alkaline phosphatase also. There are isoenzymes for many enzymes, but these 3 are important because these are diagnostically very important. The isoenzymes are of CPK, isoenzymes of LDH, and isoenzymes of alkaline phosphatase. And coming to the enzymes, the raised enzymes are seen in cellular damage, proliferation of the cells, and increased synthesis of enzymes. See, in cellular damage, we know due to damage, the enzymes are poured into the plasma, so plasma levels will be increased. In proliferation of the cells, the number of cells are more. So that's why the normal turnover is more. So that's why the enzymes will be increased in the blood if the number of cells are increased. Similarly, if the synthesis of enzymes itself is increased, then the enzyme levels are seen more in the plasma. And decreased enzyme levels are seen in decreased synthesis and congenital deficiency. There is congenital deficiency of some enzymes. So in such case, there will be deficiency, the decrease of enzyme levels in the plasma. So this is for useful for the diagnosis when we know whether the enzymes are increased or decreased in the plasma. That will be helpful in the diagnosis. And enzyme profiles in clinical conditions. Hope everyone is following. So enzyme profiles in clinical conditions. So individually, the enzymes are useful in diagnosis of different diseases. But a set of enzymes, if they are useful in the diagnosis of any diseases, they are known as enzyme profiles. So myocardial infarction, the first important disease, it is commonly known as heart attack. In this, we know there is blockage to the blood supply to a particular area of the heart muscle, and that muscle will get damaged or necrosed, or death of that particular tissue occurs in the MI. And the common symptom is chest pain. So myocardial infarction, we know blockage to the blood supply, and the tissue present at that particular area will get necrosed. So the cells at that particular area will get dead, will get necrosed, and they release their contents into the bloodstream. And we will assess all those contents for approach to the diagnosis. So these are the parameters which are released in the blood in myocardial infarction or heart muscle injury. Troponin I, CPK or creatine phosphokinase, AST, aspartate transaminase, LDH, lactate dehydrogenase, and myoglobin. Okay. So when one enzyme is concerned for the diagnosis, it is useful in the diagnosis generally, but when different enzymes, a set of enzymes are necessary for diagnosis, that is known as enzyme profile. So troponin I, we know this is myocardial muscle protein. This all we had seen. This is highly specific, and the important thing here is it rises quickly 4 hours of onset, peaks at 24 hours, and elevated for 7 to 10 days. So that is the important here for diagnosis. This is the diagnostic criteria. And we know troponin I is very specific for MI. It is not increased in any other conditions, and it is the early marker that is increased in the myocardial infarction. And you have to remember the normal ranges. And coming to CPK or creatine phosphokinase, we know it converts creatine to creatine phosphate. And the important thing here is it is rises from 3 to 6 hours, peaks at 24 hours, and remains elevated for 2 to 3 days. So this pattern of enzyme change is very important for diagnosis. Okay, and you have to remember the normal ranges. And coming to AST, aspartate transaminase, this helps in the transamination reaction in which aspartate is converted to glutamate and one keto acid is converted to another keto acid. That all we had seen. And the important thing here for the diagnosis is it rises from 6 to 12 hours, peaks at 48 hours, and remains elevated for 4 to 6 days. So this is very important for diagnosis of MI. And you have to remember the normal ranges which are useful for diagnosis. Also the normal ranges and also the change in the pattern, the change in the enzymes with the time is also very important for diagnosis. LDH, lactate dehydrogenase, which converts lactate to pyruvate, and the important thing is it rises from 24 to 48 hours, peaks at 72 hours, and remains elevated for 5 to 10 days. This is important for diagnosis of MI because in some other diseases, the pattern, the change in the patterns of LDH may be different with the time in some other disease. But this is the pattern in the myocardial infarction. So that's why this is important for the diagnosis. The normal levels and also the change in the pattern is important for the diagnosis. And this is myoglobin anyway. Myoglobin is not that important because this is not specific. This is also increased in some other conditions also. So that's why this is not taken as important diagnostic criteria. And this is the graph which you had already seen, how different biochemical cardiac markers are varying with the time after myocardial injury or MI. Okay. So this is about the enzymes, the diagnostic importance of enzymes in the myocardial infarction. The enzyme profile, which means a set of enzymes, change in the pattern of a set of enzymes in the diseases is known as enzyme profile. If we see the enzyme profile, we can easily approach to the diagnosis. And coming to the liver diseases. So the importance of enzymes in the liver diseases. The enzymes which are estimated in the liver diseases are ALT or SGOT, AST or SGPT, ALP, alkaline phosphatase, GGT, gamma glutamyl transferase, and 5-nucleotidase. So these are the enzymes generally estimated in the liver disease if we suspect any liver disease. When we suspect any liver disease, that we know depending upon the symptoms, signs, and general examination, clinical examination. So depending on all these, we may suspect liver disease. Then we'll send the patient for the liver enzymes, assessment of the liver enzymes. So this AST already we had seen in the previous slides. And coming to ALT is also transaminase. This also helps in the transamination reaction. That is the glutamate is converted to alanine. Okay, so this is present in the liver. This is more specific to the liver than the AST because this is present and synthesized in the liver only. AST is also present in the heart cells also, but ALT is present only in liver. That's why this is more specific for the liver diseases than AST. And coming to ALP, the ALP converts the alkaline phosphatase. It helps in the removal of the phosphate. Okay, it is alkaline phosphate. This is more specific to the hepatobiliary system, mostly to the biliary system than to the liver. Alkaline phosphatase, because these are present in the biliary cells. Alkaline phosphate is present in the biliary cells. So that's why it is helpful in the diagnosis of the hepatic and biliary system, diseases of the hepatic and the biliary system. And coming to the GGT, the gamma glutamyl transferase. So this is helpful in the transfer of the glutamate and from the GGT, from the glutathione, and we will get the cysteine glycine after transfer of the glutamate. So this is the function of the GGT. And coming to the liver disease, the alanine transaminase is markedly increased in the parenchymal liver disease, and aspartate transaminase is moderately increased in the parenchymal liver disease. Okay, and alkaline phosphatase is markedly increased in the cholestasis. We know because this is mostly present in the biliary tract cells, and gamma glutamyl transferase is increased in the alcoholic abuse. Okay, this is the use of the enzymes, liver enzymes, for the diagnostic approach. And liver enzymes elevated in damage of hepatocytes are AST and ALT. And the liver enzymes elevated in the cholestasis, that means obstruction to the biliary tract, that is biliary tract disease. The liver enzymes that are increased are ALP and GGT in general. Okay, in both the cases, both the enzymes are increased, but in liver disease, in the liver damage, mostly AST, ALT are increased, and in the cholestasis, the disease of the biliary tract, ALP and GGT are increased. That's why in obstructive jaundice, ALP is more increased. We had already seen that. And coming to the ratio, if suppose the ratio of AST ALT is less than 1.5, that is the ratio is less than 3:2, then it is extrahepatic cholestasis. If the ratio is greater than 1.5, it is intrahepatic cholestasis. That means the biliary disease is due to the hepatic disease. The basic disease is the liver disease, due to which it leads to cholestasis. In that case, the ratio will be greater than 1.5. If the ratio is less than 1.5, the disease is not related to liver, it is related to extra hepatic disease. The cholestasis is due to extra hepatic disease like tumors or stones. So in that case, it is less than 1.5. If the cholestasis is due to the liver disease, it is greater than 1.5. Okay. This is just a diagnostic approach to see whether the disease is within the liver or outside the liver. And coming to jaundice also, we are differentiating the different types of jaundice depending upon the enzymes. We know in hemolytic jaundice, generally AST, ALT and ALP will be normal. In hepatocellular or hepatic jaundice, the AST and ALP will be more increased due to hepatic injury or death of the liver cells. And coming to the obstructive or post-hepatic jaundice, the ALP is increased due to the damage to the biliary tract cells, and ALP is more present in the biliary tract cells. So in this way, we are differentiating different types of jaundice depending upon the enzymes. And stages of liver damage, there are different stages of liver damage, right from fatty liver to fibrosis to cirrhosis to complete necrosis and carcinoma of the liver. So all these stages can be assessed by estimating different liver enzymes. So they are helpful in assessing the stage of liver damage to some extent, along with the combination of the radiological techniques. And the next one is pancreas. So pancreas, for assessing the disease of pancreas also, the enzymes are necessary. We know what is pancreatitis. Inflammation of pancreas. It can be acute or chronic. So pancreas produces different enzymes and hormones. We know we are assessing the enzymes which are produced by that particular organ only. If we assess the enzymes that are produced by that particular organ or released by that particular organ, then only we can assess the abnormality in that particular organ. So similarly in pancreas also, we are assessing the enzymes which are secreted in pancreas, commonly the amylase and lipase, to check any abnormality in the pancreas. Okay, so lipase is an enzyme. We know lipase is an enzyme which converts triglycerides to monoglycerides and glycerol. So they help in the digestion of the fats. So this is increased in case of pancreatic diseases. And amylase, we know it helps in the digestion of the carbohydrates. Okay, it helps in digestion of carbohydrates and formation of the monosaccharides. And lipase, it helps in the digestion of the fats. So these two are present in the pancreatic cells. So that's why we will assess amylase and lipase in case of pancreatic diseases. If you suspect any pancreatic diseases. So when we suspect a pancreatic disease, same with the help of symptoms, signs, general examination and systemic examination, we can suspect pancreatic disease, especially by the pain. By the location of the pain, we can suspect pancreatic disease and we'll send the patient for assessing the pancreatic disease. So that's why we'll send for the amylase and lipase. So here the important thing is, it is raised in 6 to 12 hours and remains elevated for 3 to 5 days. And more than 3 times elevation is very significant for diagnosing the pancreatitis. And the normal level is 28 to 100 units per deciliter. And urine amylase is more specific because it remains elevated for several days. Okay, for pancreas, the urine amylase is more sensitive. It is more sensitive because it remains elevated for several days. And amylase is increased in acute pancreatitis, peaks at 6 to 12 hours, and it is also useful in the diagnosis of chronic pancreatitis and peritonitis. So chronic pancreatitis means he will get repeatedly, the patient will be getting the pancreatitis repeatedly from long span of days. So pancreatitis, you know, generally the pancreatic secretions are secreted into the duodenum. If there is any obstruction to the common bile duct, there will be obstruction to the pancreatic duct, which leads to the pancreatitis, inflamed pancreas, that is pancreatitis. And peritonitis, you know, peritonitis is a salivary gland which is present in front of the ear. So if any infection or any other diseases, the inflammation of parotid gland can occur, which is nothing but parotitis. So in parotitis also, there will be increase in the amylase. So that's why amylase is not very specific for pancreas, because it is also increased in the parotitis. Coming to the serum lipase, we know this is helpful in the digestion of the lipids. So this is raised after 12 hours and remains elevated for more number of days, and it is more specific to the pancreas because lipase is present only in the pancreatic cells, unlike amylase, which is also present in the parotid gland. So that's why lipase is more specific for pancreatitis, whereas urine amylase is more sensitive for the pancreatitis because it remains elevated for more number of days. Coming to the importance of enzymes in muscle diseases. So in muscle diseases, if you suspect any muscle disease, then the enzymes which are estimated are creatine phosphokinase, aspartate transaminase, and aldolase. So creatine phosphokinase and aspartate transaminase already we had seen. Creatine phosphokinase is increased in the heart disease, myocardial infarction. And coming to AST, aspartate transaminase, it is increased in the heart disease. It is also increased in the liver disease. So that all we had seen. And coming to aldolase, this is commonly increased in the muscle disease only. So that's why aldolase is more specific for the muscle. And where we'll get this aldolase? So if you remember the metabolisms, glycolysis, the fructose 1,6-bisphosphate is converted to dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So for this, the enzyme required is aldolase. Okay. So this is present in the muscle cells. So that's why if there is any injury or damage or disease to the muscle cell, this aldolase is released into the plasma. So coming to the muscle diseases, creatine kinase, that is creatine kinase, we know there are 3 isoenzymes, out of which creatine kinase MM is markedly increased in the crush injuries, which is a muscle disorder. Okay, crush injuries is related to the muscle. So in crush injuries, the creatine kinase, the CPK3 or CPK-MM is markedly increased in crush injuries. And coming to the skeletal muscle diseases, aspartate transaminase or aspartate aminotransferase is increased in the skeletal muscle disease. Okay. And aldolase is increased in the muscular dystrophy. Aldolase, we know it is specific for the muscles because it is present in all the muscle cells, because it is useful in the glycolysis, which is necessary in all the muscle cells. So that's why aldolase is useful in diagnosis of the muscular dystrophy. Okay, and AST is useful in the diagnosis of the skeletal muscle diseases, and CPK is useful in assessing the crush injuries, diagnosing, assessing the severity of the crush injuries. And coming to the bone diseases, alkaline phosphatase, we had seen the different types, different isoenzymes of the alkaline phosphate, in which the alkaline phosphatase heat labile isoenzyme of alkaline phosphatase is elevated in the bone diseases. Okay. So this is seen in the osteomalacia, rickets, and Paget's disease. And we know how we will assess different isoenzymes, how we can assess the increase of different isoenzymes by electrophoresis. We know that the alkaline phosphate is increased, but which isoenzyme is increased, that is confirmed by sending the sample to the electrophoresis. We can see the band clearly, the band of alkaline phosphatase heat labile type of isoenzyme. Then we can suspect, we can confirm the diagnosis of the bone diseases, whether it can be osteomalacia, rickets, or Paget's disease. So this is the osteomalacia, in which the bone becomes brittle and easily breakable. And this is the rickets, which is due to vitamin D deficiency. That all you had seen. And this is the Paget's disease. Coming to importance of enzymes in cancers, acid phosphatase enzyme is necessary for approach to the diagnosis of prostatic cancer. And neuron-specific enolase is necessary for assessing lung cancer. Okay, so these are the enzymes. Not only these enzymes, the other parameters are also necessary. The other uh, biochemical parameters and other radiological investigations are necessary. But these are important markers for diagnosis of these particular cancers. Prostatic cancer, acid phosphatase is necessary, and lung cancer, neuron-specific enolase is necessary. So prostatic cancer, you know, prostate, it is a gland present just below the urinary bladder. So in prostatic cancer, this acid phosphatase is increased. Okay. We had seen the alkaline phosphatase. This is acid phosphatase is increased. And in lung disease, neuron-specific enolase is increased. So prostate cancer is a cancer which is common in the elderly people, in the males especially. So in that cases, the acid phosphatase is markedly increased. And apart from the acid phosphatase, prostate specific antigen, another marker is there. So that is also markedly increased in the prostate cancer. It is mildly increased in the enlargement, prostate enlargement, but it is markedly increased in the prostatic cancer. And apart from that, we will also combine the ultrasound techniques, the radiological techniques for more confirmation of the diagnosis. And the enzymes, coming to the enzymes in body fluids and tissues, not only in the organs, but in body fluids and tissues also, the enzymes are useful in the diagnosis. In the CSF, if the LDH is increased, it indicates, it takes us the approach to the diagnosis of meningitis. Similarly, the gastric juice, if the glucuronidase is increased, we can suspect some gastric carcinoma. Similarly, in urine, if amylase is increased, we know it indicates pancreatitis. We know amylase is also a sensitive marker. Urine amylase is sensitive marker for pancreatitis because it remains elevated for more time. And coming to the muscle, if phosphorylase is increased, it indicates muscle disorder. And coming to glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme, it is present in the erythrocytes. If that is increased, then we can suspect hemolytic anemia because it is more present in the erythrocytes. In hemolytic anemia, the erythrocytes are lysed, more and more erythrocytes are lysed. Then all this glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is released into the bloodstream and it indicates hemolytic anemia. Okay, if glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is increased in the blood, we can approach to the diagnosis as hemolytic anemia. So this is the importance of enzymes in different organs, in different diseases, and in different body fluids. So all these enzymes are useful in diagnosis of different diseases. If a set of enzymes are useful in the diagnosis, then those set of enzymes are known as enzyme profile. And the important thing that we have to remember is not only these enzymes, but all other investigations are also to be combined to come to the final diagnosis for giving proper treatment. And these enzymes are also necessary not only for the diagnosis, these are also necessary for the planning of the treatment, because we can assess the extent of the disease, the severity of the disease, whether the complications of the disease are started or not, then we can plan the treatment schedule. And these are the enzymes which are diagnostically useful in different conditions. Lipase in pancreas, amylase which is present in saliva is also used in pancreas, and also in other diseases also. We know amylase is not very specific for the pancreas. And trypsin, alkaline phosphatase in bone and liver diseases, acid phosphatase, which we had already seen in the prostate. And here the other things, whether they are increased and decreased conditions also you can see. And lactate dehydrogenase, which is not specific for any disease because this is increased in different conditions. In heart, MI, in kidney conditions, in liver, muscle, in all this LDH is increased. Similarly, isocitrate dehydrogenase is liver, creatine kinase in heart disease and muscle disease, and glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase in heart disease and also in hemolytic anemias, and GGT we know it is increased in the liver disease and pancreas, okay, in alcoholic abuse. And ceruloplasmin is increased in liver disease, okay, ceruloplasmin which is related to the copper metabolism, storage of copper. And aldolase, we know aldolase is increased in the muscle diseases, and also the oxytocinase is present in uterus, okay, disease also uterus. So all this you can see. And coming to the enzyme assay. So enzymes, one thing we know is enzymes are directly used for diagnosis of the diseases. They directly act as the diagnostic marker of the diseases. That is one thing. The other thing is enzymes are useful in estimating different biochemical parameters, which in turn helpful in the diagnosis of the diseases. So that's why these are known as enzyme assays. The estimation of biochemical parameters by using enzymes are known as enzyme assays. So here substrate, that means the biochemical parameter that we have to assess, and the dye is added along with the enzyme. The reagent also contains enzyme. So it forms a colored compound. The enzyme catalyzes the reaction of that substrate and the product is formed. That product will combine with the dye and a color substance is formed. Okay. Suppose a blood sample is there. If you want to assess a biochemical parameter in that blood sample, then we'll add the reagent. The reagent contains the enzyme and also dye. Okay. So when we add the reagent, the enzyme combines with the substrate to form a new product. And that product will combine with the dye to form a colored compound. So we'll assess the intensity of the colored compound for estimating the concentration of the enzyme, and by which we can in turn estimate the concentration of the substrate. Okay. So in this way, we will use the enzyme for estimating different biochemical parameters, which is known as enzyme assay. Okay, enzymes used in laboratory measurements are hexokinase enzyme, which is used in the estimation of glucose, and urease is the enzyme which is used in the estimation of urea, and uricase is the enzyme used in the estimation of uric acid, and cholesterol oxidase is the enzyme used in the estimation of cholesterol, and lipase is used in the estimation of triacylglycerols, lipids. Okay. So here you can see glucose is converted to glucose 6-phosphate, and this step is catalyzed by the hexokinase. So here we want to assess the glucose, so that's why we'll add the reagent which contains hexokinase in the dye. And finally we'll get the color, and we'll assess the intensity of color for estimating the amount of glucose. And glucose, we know glucose is increased in diabetes mellitus most commonly. And coming to the urea. So urea is a byproduct of proteins. We know it is increased in different conditions, renal, pre-renal, post-renal, and increased protein catabolism leads to increased urea, and we know in prolonged fever, diabetic coma, and glomerulonephritis and renal stones, tumors, in all these conditions the urea will be increased. It is a product of protein. So the urea estimation is done by addition of the reagent which contains urease in the dye. And finally we'll get the product, and product reacts with the dye, and we'll get the color, and by estimating the color we'll assess the amount of urea present in the sample. So in this way urea is used, and we can approach to the diagnosis. So in this way urea is useful, urease is useful in estimating urea and approaching the diagnosis of the diseases related to protein metabolism. And next, coming to uricase, you know uric acid. Uric acid is an end product of the purine metabolism. So that's why increased uric acid levels are seen in the hyperuricemia, the primary and secondary gout, tophi, all this we had seen. So if you want to diagnose those diseases, then we'll add the reagent which is containing uricase and the dye. So finally we'll get different product, and finally we'll get the color. By that color intensity, we'll assess the amount of enzyme and amount of substrate, that is nothing but uric acid. So depending upon that, we'll come to the diagnosis, whether it is hyperuricemia or gout, or it is in the initial stage or in the final stage, depending upon the amount of uric acid. And next is the cholesterol estimation. So cholesterol is a lipid. If there is any lipid abnormality, it leads to variation in the cholesterol levels, and lipid abnormality leads to different cardiovascular diseases. So that's why the estimation of cholesterol is important. And here we will add cholesterol oxidase. So if the cholesterol is present in the sample, if more cholesterol is present, we'll get the products, and finally we'll get the color. And lipase. So for estimation of lipase, triglycerides, it converts triglycerides to glycerol and fatty acids. And lipase, we know it is generally seen in the pancreas, diseases of the pancreas, pancreatitis, okay, or necrosis of the pancreatic cells. So in that conditions, we will see the lipase. So for assessing the lipase, it is used in the lipase, but lipase is indirectly useful in assessing the triglycerides. Okay, lipase is directly acts as the markers for assessing the pancreatic diseases, but this lipase is indirectly useful in assessing the lipid abnormalities. Okay, by converting triglycerides to glycerol and fatty. If we suspect any lipid abnormality, then we'll take the sample. We'll add the reagent which contains lipase and also a dye. If more triglycerides are present, the lipase which is present in the reagent acts and it gives the products. And these products will react with the dye to form the color. And depending on the intensity of color, we can assess the amount of enzyme and the amount of substrate, that is triglycerides. And we can approach to the diagnosis. So here the main thing you have to remember is whatever biochemical substance we have to estimate, we are adding the reagent which contains enzyme which can act on that particular substrate, and also we'll add the dye. So the enzyme acts on the substrate, it will give the product, and we'll add the dye which combines with that particular product, and finally the color will be formed. So these are the enzymes which are used as diagnostic agents: urease, urea, uricase, uric acid. Glucose octase and peroxidase is also used in the estimation of glucose, and cholesterol oxidase we had seen, lipase we had seen, and alkaline phosphatase and horseradish peroxidase is used in ELISA techniques, and restriction endonuclease and reverse transcriptase are used in the genetics, the recombinant DNA technology and protein-based chain reaction. So these are the importance of diagnostic enzymes. So enzymes, we had seen the enzymes which are useful directly as the markers, and we had seen the enzymes in assessing the biochemical parameters which acts as markers for diagnosing some diseases. So coming to the therapeutic importance of enzymes. So clinically the enzymes are useful not only in the diagnosis but also in therapeutics, that is in a part of treatment. So streptokinase is useful for removal of clots, and asparaginase is used in cancer therapy, and lipase and trypsin are useful in digestion, that is for making the syrups, and alpha-1 antitrypsin is useful for prevention of emphysema. It's a lung disease due to deficiency of alpha-1 antitrypsin. Okay, so artificially made antitrypsin can be given for preventing the emphysema. So streptokinase, we know in MI the clots are formed. So in order to remove the clots, we'll give the streptokinase. So what this streptokinase does is the plasminogen is converted to plasmin, and plasmin activates the conversion of fibrin to fibrin degradation products. So that's why the clot will be dissolved when we add the streptokinase. Okay, plasminogen activators like streptokinase is if given to the patient, then it will convert plasminogen to plasmin, and this plasmin will convert fibrin to fibrin degradation products, and the clot will be dissolved. And coming to the second one, the asparaginase is useful in the cancer treatment. Okay, so asparaginase here, what it does is it will prevent the collagen deposition and cell proliferation. This asparaginase prevents the cell proliferation and collagen deposition, by which it controls the cancer, increase of the cancer, progression of the cancer. And coming to the digestion, we know amylase, trypsin, lipase are digestive enzymes. So if the patient is suffering from any indigestion problems, then the artificial trypsin and lipase can be given in form of syrups, so that the indigestion problems can be relieved. Okay, so this is also a therapeutic use of the enzyme. And streptokinase for dissolving the clots is also a therapeutic use. It is very important use of the therapeutic enzymes. And the second one, the cancer treatment, the asparaginase is very useful. And trypsin and lipase digestive syrups are used for digestion. And genetic engineering, the uses of enzyme in the genetic engineering, restriction endonuclease. So this is useful in gene transfer, DNA fingerprinting. And DNA polymerase is useful in the polymerase chain reaction. So here you know the recombinant DNA technology. In this, the restriction endonuclease is useful in cutting or splitting the DNA. So RDA, the recombinant DNA technology, you know, in which the restriction endonuclease enzyme is very necessary in the first step, the cutting or splitting of the DNA for the formation of for introduction into the new host cells. And coming to the second one, polymerase chain reaction. In polymerase chain reaction, there are different steps. DNA polymerase is necessary for multiplication of the DNA strands. DNA polymerase is necessary. So we know what is PCR, polymerase chain reaction. This is also used for diagnosis of different diseases. So for the diagnosis, a small DNA fragment is taken and it has to be made into multiple fragments. Then only we can diagnose easily. So that's why this is done in the polymerase chain reaction. So for this multiplication of the DNA strands, the DNA polymerase is necessary. Okay, so this is also necessary for the diagnosis only. Okay, and recombinant DNA technology is useful in therapeutics, and this RNA DNA polymerase in PCR, in polymerase chain reaction, is also useful in diagnosis only. So in this way, enzymes are directly used in diagnosis or indirectly used in diagnosis by estimating some other biochemical parameters, and they are useful in the therapeutics also. And coming to the industrial application, they are also useful in the industrial application. The glucose isomerase is useful in production of the fructose syrup. So this glucose isomerase converts glucose into the fructose, and fructose syrup is made. Similarly, amylase is useful in food industry. Amylase, we know it is very important for carbohydrate digestion. So amylase, as it is useful for carbohydrate digestion, especially starch. So different food products which are synthesized from the starch are made by using the amylase. So this amylase will break down the starch and gives different monosaccharides and disaccharides and different types of carbohydrates, and different types of carbohydrate foods are made from starch by using this amylase in the food industry. So that's why amylase is very useful in the food industry. So thank you. Hope everyone understood. So today what we had seen is the importance of enzymes in diagnosis directly. They act as diagnostic markers directly, and indirectly they help in estimation of some other biochemical parameters which help in the diagnosis of the diseases. And these enzymes are useful in the therapeutics for the treatment, a part of treatment in some diseases. And these enzymes are useful in the genetic engineering also, which are also useful in the diagnosis and treatment only. Okay, diagnosis, treatment for this recombinant DNA technology, and diagnosis in PCR, polymerase chain reaction. And these enzymes are also useful in the industrial applications. Okay, for the synthesis of this fructose syrup and for synthesis of different types of foods, amylase is necessary. Okay, this glucose isomerase and amylase are commonly used in the industrial application also. So these are the different aspects of enzymes. Hope everyone understood. So thank you and all the best.